Can I be completely honest with you? You probably shouldn't move to Boise, Idaho. In this video, I'm going to break down 5 of the biggest reasons why people should not choose Boise, Idaho or the surrounding area as the place to live and raise their family. This is an absolutely great place to live for a lot of people, but for some, it is not going to be the best place. And if it's not the best place for you, I do not want you to move here. Don't make that mistake. I'm Chase Dolan, your Boise realtor. And if you are thinking about making a move to the Boise, Idaho area tomorrow, next year, whatever it is, go ahead and reach out. I would love to help. And as you're watching this video, if you learn something or you just enjoy watching and hearing about this topic, hit that subscribe button down below. That way you're the first to know everything you need to know about the Boise, Idaho market. But when we're talking about the things that should completely scare you away from moving to Boise, Idaho, the first one that always comes up with people that are local here or people who are moving from all different parts of the country is the rapid population growth that Boise and the entire Treasure Valley has experienced over the last 5-10 years. The secret is out. Boise is a fantastic place to live. And because of that, we have been growing at an exponential rate for a pretty solid amount of time now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. This has led to a lot worse traffic than people were used to here, which has increased the commute times for people who used to go 15 minutes to get into work in downtown Boise. Now it's about 30 to 35. It has contributed to a higher cost of living as goods and services have kind of gone up, but also housing prices have 100% just skyrocketed. And then when you talk to a local, the biggest thing about that rapid population increase that drives them crazy is that they feel like the Idaho that they grew up in, the Idaho that they love, or the Idaho that draws people in is quote unquote changing. This is just what happens with growth as you get people from different parts of the country. But at the end of the day, everybody really wants Idaho to stay in the same realm of the things that really, again, make it such a great place to live. Now, even with this rapid population growth that I'm talking about, I think it's important to still note that our population here is still pretty low. When we're looking at the entire Treasure Valley, so basically from Boise all the way out to Caldwell, in 2023, the population by the Census Bureau was around 811,000 for that entire area. And I want to run down some of the bigger cities that people are moving from to kind of give you a little bit of context into how small that still is. When we're looking at Los Angeles County, there are 9.7 million people in LA County. So literally that is more than 10 times the amount of people that live in our Ada and Canyon counties here in Treasure Valley. The city of Seattle alone has around 750,000 people. The city of Portland will have around 640,000 people. And then the city of Denver has around 720,000 people. So those 3 cities, think about how big the area is that encompasses the Treasure Valley. In those cities, the same population or potentially even a little bit more is condensed into one city radius. For comparison's sake, Boise itself only has around 240,000 people. So as always, keeping this all in a relative kind of context of what actually this place is compared to other cities around our country is important. But this is also a note that I like to make because we still have so much more room to grow that I don't see this population increase or this big growth that has kind of spurred some issues with our development. I don't see those going anywhere anytime soon. But the good thing with all of this is that there is still a forecast of a ton of growth happening in the Treasure Valley over the next decade or 2. So you haven't missed the boat. This is still a good place where you can experience some of that growth and really get used to Idaho as it continues to grow. And hopefully you can help it grow in the way that you want it to. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about, and it has to do with this kind of higher cost of living with that rapid population growth, is a big reason why you might not want to move to Boise is the home prices here have been escalating at a crazy level for the last few years. There are a lot of reasons for this, and I get into them in a lot of videos on my channel, but to keep it kind of brief and general, we are a very, very high demand area. People want to live here. People want to move here from other cities, but also there's a reason people are so passionate about living in this area is that they don't want to leave either. Because of this, we have such a high demand for people who want to buy a home here, but we've had historically low inventory for years. Not only has it been a national crisis, but we've been dealing with it in the Boise, Idaho market for quite some time now, and that is not letting up. So basic economics, if you have really high demand, but you have super low supply, prices are going to skyrocket. And to illustrate this a little bit, I want to take you back into 2019, where the median house price in Boise was around $275,000. Fast forward to the end of 2023, that same median house price in Boise, Idaho was close to $500,000. So home prices in about 4 years doubled. And it's completely okay if you're sitting there like, Chase, that sounds insane. That is not sustainable. Are we in a bubble? Is Boise just going to completely crater? And one, would that be horrible for our economy and make this not such a great place to live? Or two, is there a way that I can take advantage of that and not move there until that happens? And I'm just gonna tell you, I don't have a crystal ball, I have a microphone in front of me. But what I can tell you is when we're looking at our market and such, we don't see this happening. And a big reason for this is that the median home price, again, at the end of 2023 was around $500,000. But if we go back to the middle of 2022, the median home price in Boise was up closer to $600,000. So within about a year, 18-month span, we actually saw our median home price drop by about $100,000. That is not a small correction, which means since everything had grown so quickly and we've already experienced a pretty severe correction, as we start to see things start to creep up, hopefully at a much more modest appreciation rate, it's probably not going to completely fall down. We are never going to be the devalued market that we were back in 2010, 2015, or even 2019. But like everything, if that's what you really want to bank on, in 2 years, if that actually happens, feel free, come back and tell me how wrong I was. But I'm just trying to give you the best knowledge that you can to make the decision today. Now, with that being said, I am completely conscious that our home prices here have escalated at a rate that's just really hurt affordability in our area. And hopefully you're looking at it when you're deciding where you want to set up some roots. But you got to think about how far is your dollar going to stretch and balance that with the amenities and the lifestyle that that place is offering you. There are definitely cheaper places in the country, in the Southeast and certain parts of Texas, the Midwest, but they're not going to offer you the same lifestyle that Idaho and the West Coast is going to offer you. So you just have to kind of think, what are the biggest pros and cons for you? And when I talk about the affordability, and this gets into the next reason why you might not want to move to Boise, Idaho, as home prices have completely skyrocketed, the thing that hasn't skyrocketed or really grown much at all are the job opportunities and the wages here. Let me correct that. The job opportunities themselves have gone up pretty drastically over the last 5 or so years. As our city has kind of been growing, we're a really fast growing economy. We have a quote unquote strong job market when we look at unemployment, when we look at the possibilities to start a career, all of the different fields here. There are a lot of really exciting things. But when we're looking at wage growth, wages here have not changed much over the last decade. So when you see wages going like this, but you see housing prices going like this, that unaffordability is bound to happen. But when we're looking at the job market itself, like I said, we have a really strong economy and a really good job market up here. But if you're relocating from other cities, California, Washington, Oregon, these bigger cities and states that have a higher cost of living, you're gonna notice that if you were moving from San Francisco, LA, Seattle, one of the really big cities, there are just gonna be less job opportunities here and the salaries are gonna be noticeably different. I have a client right now who's thinking about making a move up here and they're in the nursing field. And they're moving from Southern California up here. And it hit them when they were looking at jobs and such is that the salaries here for that field, there's a potential that they would make almost half of what they're making currently down in Southern California up here in Boise. And unfortunately, this is just something that you have to expect. So do some of that research. But when you're thinking about that salary dip, you have to remember that our cost of living here is also insanely lower than there. Using that same example of moving from Southern California up here, according to PayScale and Salary.com, the cost of living here in Boise is nearly 70% less than in those towns. So you might be losing half of your income, but your cost of living is also dropping by sometimes even more than the income that you're losing. So be ready. Don't anticipate making the exact same money and taking advantage of the cost of living. If you can work remote and you can do that, take advantage all day. But if that's not the case, make sure that you look at both sides and be like, okay, what do I need to make to keep the same quality of life that I have currently in Boise, Idaho? And if those numbers match up, it could be a good place. But if those numbers don't match up, it's not going to be a good place. I do not want you to come up here and be in financial straits. But again, if you can come up here and make the numbers work, I guarantee you the actual lifestyle and everything that you're getting here in Idaho is gonna completely be worth it. Like I said, depending on where you're moving from and such, do some of this research on your own. And payscale.com and salary.com, those are really good resources where you can compare any city around the country where you're moving from, where you want to go to, and it'll kind of break down the averages of what you might want to expect. Some of the major employers up here, because we do have some really large companies that have been headquartered here for some time, are going to be Albertsons, we're going to have Micron Technology, we're going to have HP, the St. Al's Hospital System. There are a ton of great employers up here, and we are seeing that continue to grow. As this growth comes, we're just seeing more and more industries, as well as more and more companies bring their headquarters and bring more jobs here. Now, let's completely get out of the financial realm and let's forget about the dollars and cents and making the budget work up here. I want to talk about the thing that might catch you off guard that should potentially scare you away if you are just not game with it. We're going to talk about the weather up here in Boise. So Boise, and this is something that I do think is a pro, truly has all 4 seasons. We have a distinct summer, fall, winter, and spring. This is not San Diego where you're gonna have 70 to 80 degree weather every single day throughout the year. There are gonna be some days where you need to bundle up. You're gonna take your dog for a walk and you are going to be freezing and want to get back to the house as quickly as possible. But on the flip side, there's also gonna be days in the summer where you're gonna take your dog for a walk and you're basically gonna turn right around and come back inside because it's 105 degrees outside, and that's not fun for their paws, that's not fun for you to go out and sweat. Those extremes are the thing here that I don't think people always expect. They are very small extremes. When I say that, I'm not saying that the extremes themselves are small. We just had one of the biggest snowstorms that we've had in years up here, where we got about 1.5 to 2 feet of snow over a week period. That is a possibility in the winter. We're also gonna have a couple of weeks in January where the temperatures and such will be in the single digits or the low teens. And then when we get to the summer, especially in August some years, we're gonna have a few week stretch where it's gonna be triple digits. You might get into the 90s and that's gonna feel like a reprieve. But these are small time periods throughout the year, roughly that would be about 5 weeks of the entire year. But it's important to acknowledge that there are gonna be those extremes. And if you really don't wanna deal with snow in the winter, you don't wanna deal with that extreme hot in the summer, this might not be the best place for you. And we're talking throughout the year and all of the weather and everything that you're able to do and take advantage of. There are a lot of great things about Boise that, again, take a look at some of the videos on my channel. I break down the outdoor activities, everything that you can do to really take advantage of all 4 seasons. But when we're talking about things to do year round, that is one thing that I think could lead you to not wanting to move to Boise, is that we have got, to be completely honest, just a lack of those big city amenities. Like I said earlier in the video, our population is growing rapidly. But when we're looking at relative population between us and some of the other big cities around this part of the country, we are still half, if not a third, a quarter of their size, which means that we just haven't gotten all of the fun things that tend to come when cities continue to grow. When you're comparing Boise to San Diego, for example, you're just gonna find a lot less restaurants, a lot less types of cuisine. You're gonna find less things to do here than you would there. You're also not gonna have an IKEA. You're gonna have to drive to one of our neighboring states if that's somewhere that you want to go. At this time, we don't really have a big amusement park, a Six Flags, Elitch Gardens, anything like that. We don't have any pro sports teams, something that I know I've talked about on the channel before that really opened my eyes when I first moved up here about a decade ago is we don't have mini golf courses everywhere. We only have a handful around our entire Treasure Valley. And then I mentioned it a little bit with the San Diego example, but as our city has been growing because we've been such a small city for so long, we really do have some limited cultural diversity up here, which just leads to less cultural types of cuisine. There's gonna be less cultural events. Different experiences are gonna be a little bit more limited, and this may change as we continue to grow, but at the moment, you just aren't gonna have the same wealth of things to go out and do every single weekend. And the one other big city amenity that I always like to point out is that our public transportation here is lacking. Inside of Boise, we do have a bus system, but that's about it. There is a bus that runs from Nampa and Caldwell into downtown, but it is very, very tough. If you're gonna be completely reliant on public transportation, you need to do some research and make sure you are mapping it out so that it will work for you. Since you're still watching this video, I hope this has been helpful. I'm trying to give you my honest take on what actually might not be the best part about living here in the Boise, Idaho area. So if you've stuck around this long, hopefully you've learned something, so hit that subscribe button down below. That helps me gather the feedback that this video is actually helping you figure out what works best for you. But at the end of the day, there are gonna be some cons, there are gonna be some pros for every city that you're gonna look at. Make sure you look at them both. If people are only telling you the good things, they're leaving something out, because this place, no place is gonna be perfect for everyone. And if you have any questions about your experience in particular, you have very specific questions, or you want me to talk more about things, all of my information is down below. Call, text, email, set up a call directly on my calendar. Whatever works best for you, I would love to help and just move that journey forward just a little bit. But until then, go ahead and watch one of these videos popping up, and I'll see you all on the next one.